of our UT men's basketball team, Linc Donner. What's going on, Coach? Thanks so much for joining us. I know you're busy getting ready for the big game tomorrow. Appreciate you joining us. How you doing on this Friday?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. An exciting time right now for our guys and our staff. It's been 11 years, I believe, since Tampa's played in the NCAA tournament, and for our guys to get us back here, what a great job they did, especially at the end of the year. Winning 5 in a row regular season, and then winning our first conference tournament game on the road. And then, we lost to Nova, but I don't think that hurt us any as far as the selection went. But, just really excited. We're down here. We just got done with practice, and, we're ready to go for tomorrow.
Coach, and I ask a lot of coaches this, when you're able to do things that you haven't been able to do as a program, and I know you haven't been there for the entire decade plus, but when did you know this season that this team had a chance to kind of, all right, like we got a chance to really do something? Was it a practice? Was it a game? Was it a certain moment that a player had? Like, at what point did you know that this team was something special?
Well, I think it was when we started the year. We started out, we started 6-0. And then we lost probably our best all-around player, and we call him B. Will, and Brian Williams. He went down with a fractured orbital and was out for 6 weeks. And during that time, we went 4-5, and we lost 3 of those games at the buzzer without him. And we thought, okay, we get him back. If we can get him back, get in the swing of things, we have a chance. We thought at that time we were as good as anybody. Before he went down, we played a Claflin team that was very good. I think they ended up winning 18 games. They had played Lincoln Memorial a couple days before us, and Lincoln Memorial is one of the top 10 teams in the country, and they lost by 6. We beat them by 30 at our place and played extremely well. And at that time, you were thinking, okay, we got a chance to be really, really good here. And then you have the injury. He goes down, he comes back, and we get on a little bit of roll, and then we hit a tough slide there. And then you started wondering, now we got beat at Rollins. It was our 4th loss in a row. Can we get this thing turned around? Are we going to win another game? And, our guys came back after the Rollins game, and we put together 5 in a row that got us into this position we're in today.
Yeah, and I want to ask you, too, about UT athletics. I'm really good friends with Coach Bush and Coach Urso. I mean, when you go to a place like UT and you see the standards and you see like, hey, was that a challenge at all? Like, was that something that was on your mind when you're able to come to UT? Like, hey, there's a model of success in some of the other athletic programs. I want to get there because, Coach, right here, man, everybody's like, all right, UT men's basketball, man, let's go, baby. Like, get on the train, man. Let's get a national championship here too.
Well, I think I spent 9 years in the league at Florida Southern, and I joke all the time whenever we picked up a recruit at the Tampa airport and we drove by downtown, we never pointed that there's a University of Tampa, because I didn't want those guys saying, boy, I want to get recruited by them. I'm going to call their coaches, because I thought it could be as good a job as any in the league. And I still believe that. And that's one thing that interests me in this job, and the success of all the other programs. The standard that they have set here, the other coaches winning national championships, competing at a high level. That's one thing as a coach that you want. And that's the one thing that we've done since we got here from day one, is stressed about, competing at the national level, winning the Sunshine State Conference, getting in the NCAA tournament, and making a run at it like all the other teams do. I mean, baseball and women's volleyball, or women's basketball team, our women's lacrosse team, our men's lacrosse. I mean, they're all ranked up in the top 5-10 in the country. Softball, I think, is number 1 in the country right now. And that's a great place to work, where the standard is high and everybody expects to win. And, we're trying to get there with the other programs at the University of Tampa.
Yeah, and you're doing such a phenomenal job. And just looking at some of your background, I always do my homework on my guests, and, seeing where you came in from in your playing days. One of my dad's favorite players to watch in the 90s was the Big Dog, right? And it's just, you always look at players and you wonder, okay, what is their next step? How are they going to stay in the game? You were a captain there at Purdue. Did you know, and I think it's maybe low-hanging fruit, and because I was a captain too growing up, and my people always said, you're going to be a coach. And I coached baseball for 8 years before I ever got into radio. Was it the same thing for you? Did you have that coaching bug when you were still playing? Or was that one of those things where, like, I'm going to ride this thing till the wheels fall off, and then we'll worry about the career after that?
Well, I think I always had the coaching bug. My dad was a high school coach in Indiana, and if you grew up in Indiana and know about Indiana basketball and in the late 80s and early 90s. I mean, playing in front of 7, 8, 9,000 every game. So I always wanted to be a coach. I knew I didn't want to get into the high school. If I wanted to do it, I wanted to go to the college route. I think I knew the game when I played back in 90 to 94, the 3-point line wasn't a huge thing.
Right.
You know, it was more about getting the ball inside, and teams played a lot of pack line and zone defenses, and, you know, teams didn't shoot a ton of threes. The game's changed. Now, I was born in the wrong era, you know, but I knew I didn't have a professional career. I probably could have went overseas and played a couple years, but I wanted to get in coaching. I was very fortunate. I had a couple classes that I had taken the summer, and one of our assistant coaches at Purdue, Jay Price, came up and said, why don't you stay around and be a student assistant next year? You know, hold those classes off and stay another year. And I went and talked to Coach Katie, and he thought it was a great idea. So I had a couple classes I had to take. I spread them out over 2 semesters. He let me become a student assistant. And the great thing is, you know, he let me get involved. You know, I just didn't stand on the sideline and not do anything. He let me do things. Coach Weber was an assistant at the time, who then went on to coach at Illinois. And, you know, and I was able to, you know, get out there and help with drills and do different things. And I think the great thing was that I played at that time. So, you know, the players would listen to me when I would give them advice and everything. And then from there, I got, you know, the opportunity to go to Murray State, and I bounced around as an assistant and, you know, became a head coach at a school out in the middle of nowhere in Indiana. And, you know, it's funny that, but, you know, I had Coach Katie call for me, and I knew Pat Knight. And Pat was always like, you know, my dad will help you. My dad would help you. And the AD at the time, Bill Mossels, was a huge IU fan. And the other guy I was in the running worked with Steve Alford. So I had a trump Steve Alford, and I called Pat, and, you know, Coach Knight called for me. And I think that's probably what won me the job, is I out-trumped the next guy for the job, and spent 4 years there and turned the program into a national power. My last year there, we went 31-3. And then I got the opportunity to come down here to Florida Southern, and then to Green Bay, and very fortunate to be at Tampa now.
Crushing it, Coach. You're doing such a great job. And, you know, looking at how this team has been able to, you know, like you said, when B Will went down with that fractured orbital. And I think you go through some of those tough games sometimes. And yeah, you look at, if you just look at, and that's the great thing about sports, right? Because you look at when he goes down, you look at the record, like, maybe they're not as, from the outside, maybe they're not as good as he, I think you learn some of your most important lessons during those games, right? All right. If he's not here to take the last shot, who's going to be able to step up? Who's going to be able to fill in the gaps, points, assists, rebounds? Who's going to be able to defend the best player on the other team? What have you learned about specific players through some of the ups and downs of this season as we about to, you know, embark on the big game tomorrow?
Well, I think we had different guys step up at different times. Amarion and Ryan, you know, filled in and produced scoring when B Will was out. You know, Trey Lane, he was the starting point guard, and he had to play a little bit more at the point. BJ, a freshman, got thrown into the fire as a backup point guard, which, you know, gained him valuable experience. And the thing I'm hoping is we lost, I believe it was 3 games at shots at the buzzer. And I kept telling our guys, it's gonna change. We're gonna get into a game where we're gonna have the lead, and the team's gonna miss the shot at the buzzer. I hope that's this week. You know, we're due to win one of those games, but I think too, it taught guys that had to make plays that weren't used to making plays. And we said that as a staff. You know, it's different when you've been in this situation and you've won before, and guys have been in this situation to make plays to win. We had to look at our team and say, really, we've never been in this situation. Even a year ago, we really weren't in it. Where it's coming down to where we got to get the ball in bounds, we got to execute, we got to make free throws. And I think maybe having a little failure with that is now we understand what we need to do, and hopefully it'll help us if we get put in that situation. And hopefully the team, we're due for somebody to miss a game winner against us.
Hey, the flip side, Coach. Maybe
That's
you guys
right.
are making the shot, right? You're right. Those last 60 minutes in a basketball game could turn into what it seems like 2 hours, because it's every single, you know, from inbounding the ball, right, to getting it over a midcourt. Like, there's just so many different little aspects of the game that you got to take care of. Because I say this, you know, dating back to my days, is it always comes down to the little things, regardless of what sport it is. If you do the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. Before I let you go, what's the big challenge? I mean, obviously you're facing a really good team tomorrow. You know, they've only had 1 loss all year long, but I mean, what do you got to do to make it 2?
Well, I think the big thing is we got to go in and understand the pressure is all on them. We don't have
Mhm.
pressure. Like they're the number 3 team in the country. If it wasn't done by regionals and Division II, which is a bad thing, they would be a number 1 seed. I know a lot of people are talking about them. That Huntsville's good enough to win the national championship. We got to make open shots. We got to defend really good. They got really, really good guards. They got a 7-footer inside that we got to keep away from the basket. And we got to rebound the basketball. If we can rebound with them and we can score in transition and make open shots, I think we got a great shot at knocking them off and pulling one of the biggest upsets in Division II basketball.
Oh, I can't wait, Coach. Definitely be tuned in tomorrow. Coach Linc Donner, UT men's basketball. Man, I'm so excited for this game. I mean, there's a lot that I think when you're looking at University of Tampa sports and you're talking about men's basketball, and we saw it on the USF side last year with Coach Amir Abdur-Rahim, like Tampa does love their hoops, and it's growing and it's growing and it's growing. And as much as South Florida is a part of it, our Tampa Spartans are a huge part of it as well. 2:30 tomorrow against Alabama Huntsville. We'll all be locked in. Coach, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time. I wish you the best of luck. Again, I know you're busy as heck. So for you to take some time to chat with me today before the big game tomorrow, super grateful. Thank you very much. Good luck, my friend, and we'll talk soon.
You.
All right, go get that win. Go get that
Thanks
win.
for having me on. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy.